Hey everyone, tonight we're going to be debating gun control. And to kick us off, we have Hake, who's against gun control. So we're going to kick it off right away. So, floor is all yours, Hake.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Nice to see you again. And shout out to TJump. Thanks for joining me on Modern Day Debate, one of the best YouTube channels, if not the best YouTube channels in existence, period. I am for more guns. I agree with Dr. John R. Lott Jr., PhD, who is author of the book and numerous studies, More Guns, Less Crime. Let the people be armed and capable. As the Second Amendment refers, a well-regulated militia means people who can handle a weapon and in good self-discipline. Self-regulated, not regulated by the government. We, the people, should be regulating the government, not the other way around. The government, the media, the crowd, they're always, even one's own thoughts and emotions are the individual's enemy, and they're not to be trusted. So we should not be looking to the government to solve the problem of so-called gun violence, which is a misnomer. It's human being violence. We should get rid of gun-free zones, so-called, especially in like schools and movie theaters and different places where the people are just fish in a barrel. And it's such a shame. People are left defenseless. Even on like Fort Hood, that was a gun-free zone where the radical terrorist was allowed to go into this gun-free zone and shoot up his fellow soldiers. So I say as an answer to the problem of mass murders, which are happening, I say that we, instead of going for the guns, we go for the root of the issue. We go for the anger of people. We go after anger. We encourage family. We defund single mothers, because when we're subsidizing single mothers, we get more of them. And they're the ones who are disproportionately raising thugs. There are a lot of all races actually. They're disproportionately the ones who are committing these crimes. They're not just mentally ill, but mentally ill and angry. I don't believe that this is a mental illness issue, the mass murders, because everybody's so-called mentally ill. And I feel that my personal conspiracy theory about mental illness is that it's a ploy to go after the gun rights of the veterans, who are our first and best line of defense in many cases. Those guys are capable, and if they're led in the right way with true religion and with sound mind, then they won't be looking to drugs and female therapists and female-minded liberal intellectual emotional therapists and politicians to disarm them. I get that a lot of police would be having a much easier job if the criminals were not armed. I'm all for disarming criminals. I'm all for throwing the criminals in jail. If a criminal is not to be trusted with a gun, then he's not to be trusted in the public. He should be incarcerated, or we should bring back swift death penalty if the crime calls for a death penalty. I don't think that we should have this encouraged irresponsibility. We need to bring back swift justice. We have a problem where people plead, they do endless appeals. We have lawyers and liars, liberal judges, phony politicians who want to withhold the death penalty and all that stuff, be soft on crime, let people get away with shoplifting and low-level crimes and higher assaults. And those things result, even our greatest president, Donald J. Trump's First Step Act has resulted in more murders happening, more, I think, rapes and other things have gone on because of that stuff. I think that we should be defunding so-called public education and even the so-called private education. We need to return to parents, fathers in the home, get rid of no-fault divorce, and get rid of, we have a problem where we have minimum wage and unions and childcare. All these things are breaking up the family. And that would be a solution to these misguided children and adults who are irresponsible, not working, don't have self-value, and that's causing anger. That's spreading anger. And the solution that the liberals bring is gun control, and they're blaming the NRA, scapegoating the NRA. And people like me who support the Second Amendment, most of us would never even dream of something like that, a mass murder or murder, period. It is it's basically a scapegoat and a distraction. So I think that we should bring back capital punishment for drug dealers, like Trump was saying. We should get rid of emotions and anger and empathy and all that stuff. Bring back real love and real prayer, and bring back the freedom to tell the truth and speak plainly. And I think that that would go a long way in reducing the problem, the symptom, I should say, of violence committed with guns.
All right. Thank you so much for that intro there, Hake. Just want to remind everybody, too, that Modern Day Debates DebateCon conference is coming up. It's going to be Saturday, April 22nd in Fort Worth, Texas. So if you want, you can grab your in-person tickets. They're in the link in the description right now. It'd be great to see all the tickets sell out by Friday night. That's what we're expecting. If you're far from Texas, you can actually tune into the event live. You can use the Indiegogo link in the description box. So you can throw a buck into our crowd fund, and you can tune in through that link there. That'll help us cover the venue cost, and you'll be able to watch all the debates that are happening live this Saturday. So yeah, if you're in Texas, definitely, if you can be there in person, I mean, I'd love to be, but if you can be, that's awesome. And check out our links in the description, everybody. So with that said, thanks again, Hake, and TJump, thanks for being here. We're going to hand it over to you for your up to 10-minute opening there.
Sure. So we know that countries that have the least guns have the least gun violence. Did you know that before guns were invented, there were 0 gun deaths? Surprise. It's magic. Countries that have extremely strict gun laws and very few guns have essentially no gun deaths, like Australia, UK, Singapore, and Germany. These countries who have very strict gun laws have very few gun deaths. Surprise. It's like, who could have seen that coming? So it's not like Japan, China, Singapore, Germany, United Kingdom, and Australia. Very strict gun laws, very few gun deaths. It's not magic. It's basic. Tons of studies on it. Shows very simply, less guns, less gun death. It's pretty obvious. So yes, we should have stricter gun laws to have less guns, because then less people will get shot with guns. It's not hard. I'll conclude there.
All right, excellent. Well, with that quick intro there, we'll kick it right into the open discussion. So I'll let Hake start out with a response to that point there, and we'll get right into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Well, thank you. That's a nice, cute, shallow, obvious statement, but it's not addressing the root issue. And you can always look to the mainstream media or women or atheists, shallow people like that, to say, oh, let's just get rid of the guns and then we'll get rid of gun deaths. I don't care about the shallow symptom of reducing harm in the form of guns, because what you're doing is, well, first of all, it's a violation of the basic right to carry guns. I don't know or care about those other countries. Some of them are islands. Some of them are much
Germany.
Smaller. They don't have guns already in their hands.
Germany.
Yeah, Germany's quite small of a country, and it's not an island.
Size makes no difference. It's per capita. The actual size makes no difference.
Right, but it kind of matters, because Germany was already disarmed. They've already had a big crackdown on them, and they're a much more homogenous society. We have open borders. Where
Germany has open borders. Remember, Germany is super woke, super leftist. They haven't done anything to address the ills that you're talking about. They do even more of that social justice-y stuff than we do, right?
They do a lot more of the social justice-y stuff, but they don't have, the drug
But no gun
cartels.
deaths. No gun deaths. No.
I honestly don't care about no gun deaths. They have the drug.
Why? That seems like a pretty important thing to care about. Like no gun deaths is good. That would be much better.
Not inherently so, because you're dealing with like I said, you're dealing with the symptom and not the root issue of the evil of people's hearts.
I don't care about the evil of people's hearts. People can have whatever feelings they want. Their feelings are not a problem. Deaths are a problem.
They are a problem.
No, feelings
they
are
the
the
root issue.
No,
anger
feelings
causes,
have no issue.
Anger,
feelings don't matter. So like let's say we allow everyone to live in their home and they can have whatever feelings they want, but no guns. That means no guns deaths, right? So they can hate as many people as they want, as much as they want.
Right.
But with no guns, they can't exact that hate to kill them. So they feelings are fine. There's nothing wrong with feelings. Everyone has freedom of speech.
Wrong with feelings.
No, nothing wrong with feelings.
Yes, there is.
No.
The studies have even shown, even the liberal professors have pointed to mental illness does not cause violent crime. Anger does, and anger is what causes these gun deaths are not the only evil in the world. There is also the violation of people's basic rights. And the violation of people's basic rights is taking away their guns.
I don't care. It saves lives.
I don't care about saving lives. I care about the root issue.
Clip that. We're going to clip that one.
You can clip it. You can clip it. I don't care about saving lives because it's not about, because that's a shallow solution. You're bringing in other problems. Germany has
a direct
solution. A lot of
solution.
other problems.
Gun deaths are the problem. How do we reduce gun deaths?
Gun deaths are not a problem. They're a symptom.
What? They're the problem.
No, they're not the problem. They're a symptom of the.
They're not.
No, they are not a
problem.
I disagree with you that they are a problem. They are a symptom. Let me define it. They are a symptom of the problem of evil of people, and emotions and anger cause murder, and emotions and anger are what people are responding with as the solution for this. Blame the NRA, spread more anger, and popularize this thing, make more copycat mass murder crimes, which became more and more popular ever since the 90s. And honestly, the 60s
I think
and 70s.
That we have a difference in values here.
Right.
So I think each human should have the right of freedom of expression. They can feel what they want. They can be racist, very, very, very racist individuals.
Such thing, but yes, right.
and that's fine. They get to have whatever opinions they want, whatever hate they want. They can have that as long as they don't use that to harm others. There's nothing morally wrong with having those feelings.
Right.
Perfectly fine. The problem is the killing of the people that are hated. That's the problem. So I don't mind if people hate other people. That's fine. That's normal. What's not normal is then killing those people. And so if we can solve the killing,
is quite normal too. Now, if you're going to call hatred normal, you have to admit that killing is normal as well.
No, not really. Like
killing.
If we take all humans who have ever lived, less than 1% have died from killing, or less than. So killing is not normal. Killing is very fringe. So the problem
more
here is that
in some communities than others, though. In the more angry communities.
In the communities that have more guns, because there are equally angry people who don't have guns, and they don't kill other people as much. Did you notice that? That they're like suicidal people. People who have guns successfully commit suicide more than suicidal people who don't have guns.
But
why is that?
It's not our job to play mama and try to stop them.
Yes, it is. That's literally the job of the government. To stop murders and suicide. Yes.
No, it's not, man.
What?
It's not the job of the government to stop the people from killing themselves and committing murders. They're the ones who are spreading this. They're debasing the family and morals,
do you think
and encouraging
the job
people.
Of the government
Hold
is?
on. The job of the government is to do evil. So
oh my god.
The job of the government.
Okay. What is the job that the people in government are trying to do? What are they trying to do?
They're pretending like they want to help, and by helping, playing mama, they're hurting. They're hurting the people. They're spreading suicide.
So help. When you say help, what does that mean?
Enabling single mothers to be single mothers, for example.
You mean like
and
giving
raising
people
more violent children?
Giving
They're
people
the
more
ones who-
freedoms, protecting them from others, giving them the ability to express themselves, the ability to buy homes, have jobs, feed their families, like trying to help them be able to live with the least imposition of will possible. That's the goal of government, is to give people the most freedoms.
That's your goal because you're a nice, sensible guy, somewhat. But go ahead.
Well, what do you mean my goal? So like the
Your
point of
goal
government
is to keep the people free, have as much freedom as they can, except for guns, apparently.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you really believe this.
Yes.
But the goal of the government is to play mama. Most people in the government are corrupt people. Actually, probably all of them are.
I would
they
agree.
want to control the people. They're not to be trusted with all the guns. That's ridiculous.
Well, I think that it's fine to trust them with the guns, but because we're not trusting them with the guns, we're trusting the military with the guns. And so, but that's a different topic. The question is what is the purpose of government? Now, the purpose of government is to create a solid, secure foundation for people to be able to live as best lives they can. That's the goal of government. The attempted hope that government's supposed to do, would you agree?
I don't know if I would entirely agree. I would want less government. The less government in your life, the better off you are. Because
no, just the goal. Like, forget whether or not it works. The goal of government, what it's trying to do, is to create a framework of safety, economic safety, military safety, comfort around other people. The goal of government is to create safety for people to be able to live their lives as best as they can, right? That's the goal, what governments are trying to do, hopefully.
What you and I might want a government to do would be probably close to that.
Sure. And now
but that's not what the government effectively does or wants to do.
I think it is. I think we have tons and tons of evidence to show that. But suppose that is the goal. So if that's the goal, if the government is trying to create the safest place for people to live, would it be safer with or without guns?
I suppose you could say without guns. Yeah, I suppose you could say without guns.
Yeah,
but safety is not the ultimate goal.
What do you think is a more important goal than safety?
Life, freedom.
Well, you get a lot more life when you're safe, right? If you're less safe, there's less life because more death, less life.
But that's not real life. That's like
you can have a real life without owning a gun, Hake. You're going to live. If you don't own a gun, you'll live. You won't die. You're not going to have a heart attack from lack of gunness.
I understand that, but that's not would you agree that your idea is a total violation of the Second Amendment, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Get rid of the Second Amendment. Get rid of guns. Right.
And
so I'm an advocate of science and data, and I think that if there is some scientific proven fact,
though. Not logic.
No, common sense is dumb. Logic, I'm a big fan of logic. Common sense is literally the worst form of logic. It doesn't work at all. But I'm a big fan of evidence. I'm a science guy. So if we can prove this method works better, saves more lives, improves people's lives, even if it's a violation of the Constitution written 300 years ago, which literally the founding fathers said we were supposed to rewrite every decade anyway, even if it violates that, if it saves more lives and scientifically is proven to save more lives, then yes, we should rewrite the Constitution to accommodate the reality of saving more lives.
But you guys aren't looking at the causes of the mass murders, because these didn't used to happen in the good old days. Did you notice that? For example, like the black violent crime, that is a relatively recent phenomenon. It wasn't which they're the primary ones committing the mass murders. And then there's a whole lot of other people committing the mass murders.
That's true.
And so the government has been conducive to destroying the family, which has spreading
has done lots of dumb things. I agree.
And spreading anger.
What is the fastest way to solve the problem?
No, no, fast is not good. Quick solutions are bad, man. So yeah, I get your shallow thing about, and I don't know how it's even feasible. And I'm glad that it's not feasible, kind of, to take away the guns, because we have how many million? I think we have more guns than people, maybe. I could be wrong.
By several times, yes.
I think that we need to bring back we need to do it the back to basics, hard, good, common. Why do you say common sense is bad? What's common sense?
It's proven to be bad. Like science, we have analyzed common sense and we know that it's actually inaccurate in pretty much every metric that it can be measured on. It's terrible.
Interesting. What is common sense?
Common sense is an intuitive belief based upon your life experience in order to come to a conclusion about something pertaining to the world.
So, like an example of common sense, do you have one in mind? That because I have maybe one in mind or two.
I have lots of them. I don't know, like.
Okay, so let me give one or two. The Aurora, Colorado shooting from like the Batman one from 2012 or whenever that was, where the Joker looking guy, I don't think it was Joker, shot up the people in the theater at midnight showing, Aurora, Colorado. Had it not been a gun-free zone and those people been armed, would he have even done that?
Yes, because it happens mostly. A lot of them are in gun zones. Lots of mass shootings are with guns.
In zones with guns?
Yes.
Those were the ones committed by blacks. This guy turned himself in as soon as the cops showed up. So you don't know.
Most of them do that,
I gave you
would he
have.
Forget the black-white distinction. Like
Right.
most mass shooters happen in places with other guns.
Not the most prominent ones.
I don't care about the most prominent ones. I care about most of them. So the fact that it got shown on the news more, which makes it prominent, I don't care. I want to know about the data and its relevance.
But you made the claim that this Joker guy who turned himself in as soon as the cops showed up with guns.
Yes, most of the mass shooters turn themselves in
as soon as somebody with guns shows up.
Well, no, they just turn themselves in, whether or not they have guns. They literally just turn themselves in.
They specifically,
it has nothing to do with the guns. It has nothing to do with the fact that they come with guns.
But they go into gun-free zones, man. You're not being. I don't know if you're being quite honest. You're saying statistically, yeah, most. I don't take that away from you. You may be right that most of these mass shootings happen with guns, but there's a whole lot of gun-free zones, and those are the ones that are
like your argument is like implying that the mass shooter was only emotionally capable of going to a place where they didn't have guns, and as soon as he saw a gun, he was just going to freak out and give up. No, after he had committed his plan, which would have happened with whether or not there were guns in the location.
You don't know that.
I do.
You don't know
this happening. This happens all the time in tons and tons of mass shooter cases. They have a plan to go to a place.
I brought up specifically this Aurora shooter. I brought up specifically this Aurora shooter as well as these ones in these schools.
This applies to all of them. So
it does not apply to all of them. That's ridiculous.
Yes, it does. So if a shooter has a plan to go to a specific location at a specific time and carry out an act of violence, their plan doesn't include, well, if it's a place that has guns, we're going to run away. And that's not a part of the plan. Now,
because
after
they go
their
to
plan
places that don't have guns.
No, many of them do not. That is incorrect. So
the ones
after their
many
plan
of them
is
do.
done,
go ahead.
When the cops show up at their home, yes, many of them give up. Not because they have guns. That's not because they have guns. It's because it's not a part of their plan. Like even many of the mass shooters in their plans pick locations that have guns there. They have gun rights. It doesn't make a difference.
Can you name one?
Gun violence
name
happens.
Name a few mass shootings for me. Name a few.
I don't know them.
Okay, the El Paso, those Hispanics in the Walmart, they did not have guns. The Aurora, Colorado.
Walmart does have gun in Texas. What are you talking about?
I know, but those Mexicans who got shot weren't armed. And then
did the shooter plan that? No. Walmarts in Texas sell guns.
I know, but that doesn't mean that they're armed.
They had a right to carry guns.
I know,
so
but
the shooter picking that location, he did not know whether or not they had guns, which disproves your point.
No, it doesn't.
Your point was that he picked a location with no guns. Like, no, because every one of them could have been carrying a gun then.
I know, but they weren't armed. He specifically went to the
Did he psychically know that they were not going to be armed?
Maybe I'll give you that one. But how about the Aurora, Colorado gun-free zone? All these schools, gun-free zones. The schools, there should not be gun-free zones. There's been no shooting at a school where the staff are allowed to be armed. Did you know that? According to Thomas Massey, who's
pretty
a
much
Republican.
None of them. Well, that's like saying there hasn't been a shooting with a school that involves trans. What are they called? The readings. What are they called?
Yeah, the drag queen story hour.
Yes, drag queen. So there's been no shootings at any preschool with drag queen story hours. You know why? Because it's only a tiny percent of schools that have those.
Not even an accidental discharge, according to Thomas Massey. And
what is that even? Again, so the amount of schools that allow teachers to carry guns is so tiny that
Right.
obviously.
I know, because we have an anti-gun culture right now where people are scared of guns. They don't want to carry them and all that stuff. So
Because they kill
that
people.
brings back my point about the Walmart. I don't think those Hispanics were armed. You look into it and tell me if those Hispanics were armed. I'm going to assume that they were not armed in the El Paso Walmart. But anyway,
Okay.
it's interesting that you can't name one single place where they definitely were armed that they went into.
Whether or not, well, there are lots of them that are armed. Some shooters got into armed conflict with them. But the point was,
Right.
is the location, are they allowed to carry guns? Because if they are allowed to carry guns at the location, then that disproves your point that
Not
the
really.
shooter picked that location because people wouldn't be armed.
I can tell you one case in the church, Dylan Roof in North Carolina, South Carolina. He thought of going to the hood to go after the black drug dealers, but instead he went after the black unarmed people at the church because drug dealers shoot back. So that's one case that disproves your point.
Where did he say that in his manifesto? Where did you get that from?
I heard it in the news. I can't tell you the source, but I heard it. I'm pretty sure of it. Do you doubt? Do you doubt? Okay.
Yes.
Let's say you doubt that?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It's kind of unreasonable. It's kind of unreasonable for you to say that not one of these cases did they go into the place with least resistance.
Yes, because none of them picked their location because there was no resistance. Like school shooters pick it because it's going to get media attention. Dylan Roof picked it again for his ideological reasons.
Yeah, he wanted a race war.
Yeah, and so it wasn't because like if they wanted to pick a place with no guns, they like the best place would be like New York subway or something. Like they're not picking places specifically because they have no guns. They're picking places for ideological reasons that have nothing to do with whether or not they're well defended. Like if there were actually trained military officers trying to do this and they're just trying to get the most casualties, obviously they would pick a place that wasn't armed. But that's not the mentality of mass shooters. They're not trying to calculate how to get the most serial efficiency of their weapon. They're just trying to cause the most damage and get the most attention.
The other thing you said that it disproves my point, or it debunks my point, if they're allowed to carry guns. Yeah. We do have a culture where a whole lot of people are scared of guns. They won't carry the guns even if they're allowed to. It sort of matters. What you said
was that the shooters picked the location because there wouldn't be armed people there. There is no way that the shooters could know that there were not going to be armed people in a place where you're allowed to be armed. That would be dumb. It's a dumb argument to say that the shooter picked Walmart because he thought no one in Walmart would be carrying when in a place it was legal to carry. That does not make logical sense.
Okay, I get you on the Walmart one for Texas. Interesting, man. You don't think it has any you think it's no factor in any of these people? You can't.
Very little.
Oh, so it has some factor. It is some factor.
Sure. Probably.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm a scientist, so single digit percentages, absolutely.
All right. I'm satisfied with that.
Okay.
All right.
So that's an example of common sense that you say is debunked.
What was the common sense?
An armed society is a polite society.
Yes, that is absolutely debunked.
Excellent. I'm just going to jump in right quick here, everybody, and just do a little housekeeping. Just remind everybody that Modern Day Debate is a neutral platform inviting all walks of life. As you can see here, we're not afraid to talk about some very controversial subjects and some juicy topics. Want to thank our debaters for coming out tonight. If you like what you're hearing from either of our guests, they're both linked in the description here. So definitely check them out. And also, off to the side of me here, you can see we have an atheist versus atheist debate coming up. So if you like what you're hearing from TJump here, he's going to be back. So we're going to kick it back into the open discussion, kick it over to you, TJump, and let you guys carry forward. And thank you, everybody, for being here.
Sure. So the polite society or the armed society is a polite society. Yes, that is absolutely false. Like all these places that you mentioned of African Americans shooting each other, those are all armed societies. Do you think they're polite societies?
Right. They're not. That's true.
So common sense, not very accurate, doesn't correspond to reality.
I know, but it does. It's not really realistic to think that disarming the people who follow the law is going to protect them from the people who don't follow the law.
Absolutely true. So one of the things I think we could probably agree upon is that the implementation of gun laws in America is absolute garbage, and there is absolutely no data to support that the kinds of gun laws that American politicians attempt to enforce. They're idiots. They have no idea what they're doing. We should not enforce the kinds of gun laws that Democrats are advocating for because they're morons.
Just briefly to touch back, there was this Peyton Gendron guy who shot up some people in, I forget where. He allegedly wrote how he planned to kill as many blacks as possible in the attack and decided to carry out in New York due to its strict open carry laws, which would make it harder for someone to stop him. So there's a factor. There's that part of that single digit % that you talked about. Anyway, schools, churches, nightclubs, no guns. And so they're going to the place with the least resistance. It is a factor more than I think you're acknowledging.
No, again,
even if it's not, even if they're not consciously thinking of it. We have a culture that's, like I said, scared of guns, even to exercise their rights as they have them. Now you said something, I forget, somebody said something that was interesting.
About what?
I forget. Oh man,
might have been something.
What did you say just before?
I don't remember. What were we talking about before?
Man.
Well, if we want to steer this conversation full back.
This is why the moderator should not ever interrupt, because we get lost.
Oh, that's my fault. Yeah. No.
Blame James Kuntz. It's clearly James Kuntz's fault.
Yeah.
100%.
No. Yeah. I am definitely his problem. That's for sure. Yeah. We'll just try to come back into a topic here of interest. So TJump, what would be something that you would implement to start out something for gun control? If I think that would be of interest to kind of.
That was it. You said the politicians are idiots.
Yes.
What would you do?
Yes. So politicians are idiots. We know that the gun control policies that are advocated for in America are garbage. We should implement the gun control policies that are advocated for in countries where it actually worked, not our garbage country. So one of the things American politicians do incredibly stupidly is they try to make up their own laws instead of using laws that have already been proven to work in other countries. We should just copy the laws that are used in the other countries, like Singapore, Germany, the UK, Australia. Their policies worked. Our policies don't. Copy their policies.
What are those policies? Can you get a little more specific?
Taper off the amount of guns that can be sold per year, to whom they can be sold. Try to decrease the overall total of guns to the lowest amount possible. Forget about all this garbage about what constitutes a handgun versus assault rifle. Waste of time. Just get rid of the guns.
Yeah. Huh. Man, that's terrible. I'm a little surprised that you think like this.
Based on science, I want to save lives. What way saves lives? Less guns saves lives.
That part doesn't surprise me that much. Sort of an atheistic mama. I want to reduce harm. Like Destiny talks like that sometimes too. He was on
less people dead.
Yeah,
such a mama idea. Like so terrible. Atheists want less people to die. Oh my God, so unchristian of us.
Because it's shallow. It's going after the symptom. Yeah, you're addressing this symptom by cutting off the gun, but you're not addressing the root issue, and so you're punishing the people and leaving them helpless. Because as some of these countries, correct me if I'm wrong, implemented their gun control, murders went up.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they did.
There's some cases of like implementing a policy and it takes time for it to go into effect. But I don't think ever implementing these policies caused gun deaths to go up. Like because there are other factors that, like during the I think it was 60s or 1980s, there was a massive rise of violence, and there were also gun reforms put into place at the same time, but the violence was because of the gun reforms.
Interesting.
And we can prove that because we know that the violence went up in locations with and without gun reforms at the same rate, and therefore it proves the gun reforms didn't cause the increase in violence.
Interesting. The so-called gun deaths, or deaths by people who shoot with guns,
Bullets.
are
Bullets kill people. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Bullet
those aren't.
deaths.
That's not the only. That's not the only evil. There is home invasions. There is the government going against the rights of the people,
Yeah.
violating the rights of the people. There are all kinds of evil in the world. And
Sure.
so reducing this evil is going to cause other evil to crop up in ways that
In which
you
country
may
that
not
banned
anticipate.
guns did we see the increase of those things that you're talking about?
Well, I
Japan?
heard that England had an increase of knife murders
True.
and
That is
things
true.
like
So
that.
do
And
you
so,
think, well,
uh-huh,
just to clarify, do you think
yes,
the number of knife deaths was greater or lower than the number of gun deaths after it was
I
banned?
would guess lower, but you're leaving people defenseless, and you're leaving cops defenseless, and that's dumb mama stuff. That's atheistic, shallow mama stuff. And I don't care about.
Okay. So
Go
let's
ahead.
say yes, we're leaving everybody defenseless,
Uh-huh.
but the number of deaths goes down. Is that a good or a bad thing? Defenseless, less deaths.
uh, I it's I suppose that it's good that there's less deaths, but at what cost? There's a whole lot of England are a bunch of, I don't want to say the word. It starts with a C, but it's not the bad word, but they're like girly people. They're in so many different ways. There's just ridiculous. And I say that this is another ridiculous, shallow.
You think this is because
thing.
they don't have guns? If you lose your
No,
guns,
it's just
your balls fall off. You become girly.
it's-
Is that what you think? Is that how you think it works?
Not exactly, but it's like a
Not,
it's
what do
like
you mean
a
not
symptom.
exactly. You think it's like non-exactly? It does
If
happen
you
that way?
if you kept your private parts, then you wouldn't surrender the guns because you can take care of yourself. We want an independent people, not a dependent people.
But so I wanted
yeah.
to address your point there that we leave people defenseless. So that's a kind of
Nice.
okay argument.
Thank you.
Yes, we leave people defenseless. And so the argument would be if taking guns away left people defenseless and more people died because of it, then taking guns away would be bad. But
Death is
if
not the only
taking
evil.
guns away causes less death, then that means that we're actually protecting them better. They have more protection because less people are dying. So even though having a gun makes you feel safer, if it causes more deaths for more people to have guns, then less people having guns is actually more protection.
I don't want to feel safer. I want safety and all that stuff. It's not the motivation for me.
I agree. I don't want to feel safer either. Feeling safer doesn't matter. I want to actually
Right.
be safer, right? Would you agree?
Not necessarily. I don't want the mama government protecting me, but because these are not actually honest people. If they were honest people and really wanted to address some of this stuff.
Honest.
No, here, listen. If they really wanted to address the issue of this anger that causes these mass murders, they would deal with the family. They would close the borders.
We don't want to.
Would they close the borders if they were honest?
Close, probably not. No.
Why not? There's all kinds of guns supposedly coming from guns.
The percentage of people
cartels and criminals and all that stuff.
Well, the percentage of immigrants who are violent is lower than the percentage of native, like people in America who are violent. So most of the people who come, obviously, but like if we take all immigrants,
but the ones coming, the mess coming through the border, and I'm not blaming the immigrants. I'm talking about cartels.
Yes.
All that stuff. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Well, those are closed off of. We do close those to the borders. That's not legal. So those are the border is closed for those things.
Not real. Come on.
They're illegally entering the country with cocaine. That's not like the border's like, hey, come through with the cocaine. Yeah, totally fine. Like, no, the borders are closed to that. They just bypass the laws.
And we would really crack down on that. Go ahead.
We do crack down on it. We do that a lot. But the thing we don't really crack down on is just regular people coming through, because that part is most of them are just normal people.
Those people coming in are not normal people. They don't even believe in the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, which you don't either. But I mean, you believe in the first.
Not what makes people normal. Hey, believing in the First and Second Amendment is not what makes a person a normal person.
I know, but that doesn't make them good for the country. And I'm not talking about immigration.
Believing in the First and Second Amendment doesn't make someone good for a country. Hake, what makes someone good for a country is if they work hard and they produce more value to the country than they cost. So like if they
And
generate
that's-
more wealth and economic growth than they do in taking in welfare and social security, then they're beneficial to the country. It has nothing to do. This is what applies to all countries, not just America, Hake. So the
Mhm.
vast majority of immigrants, Mexican workers who walk over the border, are regular, hardworking people who put in a lot of effort and generate more income economically to our country than they damage it by a
I think
significant
that's a
margin.
naive statement.
It's a
I think
proven
that's
statement.
No,
It's
it's
accurately yes, it is. It's literally proven.
I don't believe.
Who do you
I
think
don't-
picked
I
your
doubt that.
vegetables? Hake, who do you think picked your vegetables?
It should have been the young people, the
Illegals.
blacks. It should not have been those, because unemployment and all that's why I brought up all this stuff where these people who are not working and making value of their lives, they're in gangs, they're selling drugs, they are
It's because they don't want to pick vegetables.
on welfare.
It's a lot of work.
They definitely could. They're quite capable. They're
They
good in
could.
the sun.
They don't want to. I don't want to. Nobody wants to.
You're so says you, but
Do
they
you want to
would
pick
want to.
vegetables, Hake? Do you want to spend 8 hours a day picking vegetables?
No, my skin is not set for that. But they would want to. They would want to if they were not babied by the government. And if they were not babied by the government, they would not be spoiled, murderous drug dealers and criminals.
You mean if we made
Thugs.
them suffer enough that would encourage
Let
them
them
to
suffer.
do other suffering, to try to be less suffering than the amount that they're suffering, they'd like that.
Yes, they would, because not make them suffer, let them suffer.
Let
Mama
them
doesn't
suffer.
want to let them suffer. Mama makes them spoiled and angry and evil thugs.
And you don't, and that doesn't sound, I don't know, a little bit, I don't know, immoral to you?
Mama making them spoiled, immoral
Letting people
thugs?
suffering. If you have the ability to help people and you let them suffer and do nothing.
Right. That is not immoral. That is oftentimes the best thing. Helping often hurts.
That literally is a contradiction, Hake.
No, think about how corrupting welfare has been, and unemployment, and there's like able-bodied men on unemployment because
So how many people do you think are on unemployment and welfare?
I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't even guess.
What percentage of America is African American?
Like 13, 14%.
What
12.
percentage of them are the criminals?
I don't know.
Let's say 3. Because like most
Okay.
of them are young men, like 15 to 25, right?
Right, single mothers.
And most African Americans are actually older, just like we are, white people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people who are the troublemakers make up maybe like 3%, right?
Maybe.
And so of
Those who are
all
caught.
of,
But
so
anyway.
of all of, and welfare and social security help a lot of white people too, and Hispanic
Mhm.
people and Chinese
Yeah,
people.
and many of them are criminals too. Maybe
So of the
those people
Hundreds
should be
of the-
working.
of
Then
the-
we
of
don't
the-
need the illegals to come in.
of the tens of millions of people on welfare, social security, etc.,
Uh-huh.
what percentage are criminals?
I have no idea.
Like less than 1.
What's your point?
That this does a lot more good than harm. These things help a lot more people than it hurts.
Just because they're not convicted criminals, convicted keyword, because they're getting away with a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm just
Doesn't
kind of like
mean-
just
doesn't
number
mean
of
that
deaths.
it's good for them.
Why would this not be good for them? Why would them having food and freedom to
That's
pursue
not
their
freedom.
interests?
Go ahead.
Having food isn't freedom?
No, I said being babied by the government. That's not freedom.
How
Because when
is
you're babied
having
by the government,
more-
you're controlled by the
so
government.
Option A, you have to work 8 hours a day
And have
you-
self-respect. Yep.
and have self-respect. So you
And
work
not
8
being
hours a
committing
day,
crimes.
you have self-respect. Option
And
B,
not needing these illegals in the country who
option
have
option B,
babies who
you
support
don't have
Democrats.
to work 8 hours a day and you can spend those 8 hours how you want. Which
Uh-huh.
one is more free?
Depends on the society. I think that you have
It does not depend on
It kinda
society, Hake.
it does
makes
kinda
no
depend.
difference. It makes no difference. So
Well,
option
society's set
A,
up-
you
society-
must
Go ahead.
work for 8 hours. Option B, you can choose to do whatever you want for 8 hours, which can include working if you so choose.
Uh-huh.
Which is more free?
You can say, I get your point that you have more quote unquote free time. You can say, oh, that's more free.
Freedom.
I-
It's freedom.
That's free dumb. Keyword dumb. because that's ridiculous. I should get my spittoon for this. That's
What is freedom?
I get that there is such a thing as like wage slavery. I'm not disputing that. Partly because we need to get rid of minimum wage and all these things that drive up the cost of living.
What is
including
freedom?
all the say
what is freedom?
Freedom is when you are not reliant on the government.
What is
partly
self-reliance and freedom are not the same thing.
But it's a more valuable freedom than
it's not a freedom. This has literally nothing to do with the word freedom. Like you could be a slave and be self-reliant.
I'm losing track of what your point is here. And
you keep talking about
you may have
freedom.
lost track of what my point is here too.
You keep talking about freedom. Freedom is the right to act and speak and do what you choose to do without hindrance. That's what freedom is.
And that's what you're not for.
That's exactly what I'm
for taking away the guns so that they can't kill one another and themselves.
Right, because so other people can't die. So I want to take away one freedom, which is a partial freedom, to save the 100% freedom loss of death of other people.
Right. Yeah. I understand. But again, if the government were honest, wouldn't they close the borders? Because it is more of a problem than you're acknowledging.
What?
And the
who kills more people? Gang members from across the borders or gun deaths?
And the destruction of the family is another thing that increased the murder rates.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And this encouragement, this division between the races and the increased.
I don't think that one didn't really do anything. That one didn't have very little effect. Like increased division during the races makes essentially no difference. The vast majority of murders,
I don't know if that's exactly
are of the same
true.
race. Well, the vast majority of murders are all same race, right? White on white, black on black, almost no difference.
Black Lives Matter was supported in 2014 and 2020 by the establishment government media. And after those things, black on black crime increased. So yes, it didn't only affect black on white crime.
That doesn't make any sense.
Increased.
So we made black people hate white people, so they killed other black people more?
Yeah, because it was an attack on the police and law and order. See, you lack common sense.
What? So you think that the amount of murders increased because people were killing cops more?
One another. No, the cops were backing off. They were getting charged with frivolous crimes. Like Freddie Gray, those cops were charged.
What does that have to do with the increased murder rate? We're talking about the increased murder rate. So you said Black Lives Matter did stuff, and this increased the murder rates of black on black crime.
Yeah, less cops on the streets to deal with the blacks. Less cops' hands tied behind their backs effectively.
What does this have to do with black people hating white people more, or vice versa?
Because the Black Lives Matter was about blacks hating whites.
Yes, and how did the fact that they hated white people more make the black cops go away?
What made the what cops?
Like most African American communities have majority African American police, and so making African Americans hate white people, if that happened, wouldn't affect the black.
Come on,
cops.
Don't say if. You know that happened.
Some of them did. Most of them did not.
There was defund the police. There was a lot of people
that has
resigning.
Nothing to do with hating white people. Like you keep bringing up this division between the races. I think you think like the fact that they hated police is not division against the races. That's division against the police. Those are separate things.
You're ignorant on this topic. There was such a thing as the Ferguson effect, and after the Georgia, Florida riots, there was another spike in the Ferguson effect. Was a spike in murders. Black on black and black on other races.
Yes.
And
which had nothing to do with creating division between the races.
Yeah, it was division.
There was division between the police, division between
white police,
social issues.
Yeah.
Wasn't about division between the races.
It was division between the races. Black Lives Matter is about falsely accusing whites of not valuing black lives.
That I can partially agree with. Yeah, but the increase of crime was not because they had created this increased division. It was
it was an indirect result of it.
They created division between the police and people.
Yeah. The white police. The white supremacist black police.
All police lives. All
Yeah, yeah.
police, not
I know, but they
not
see
white,
police
just
as white.
White police matters. No, all
They
police
see
matters.
they see the black police as Uncle Toms and stuff like that. They even killed a cop in the Black Lives Matter riots during the Georgia Florida riots. It was like you got to read the War on Cops by Heather MacDonald of City Journal, and that was after the Obama insurrection, Black Lives Matter insurrection. But there was also the insurrection of Black Lives Matter during the Trump administration during the China virus, and there was also a spike in crime from that. And it was you could call it
was the
indirect...
China virus also because of disagreements between the race? Is that what increased the violent crime? Because the China virus made black people and white people hate each other more?
No, I wasn't calling that a reason.
Right.
I was talking about
so you can have an increase in crime because something happened, and that something doesn't need to be a conflict between races, right? It could be something else, right?
Yeah.
And so if, for example, there was this big organization that was working to defund the police or whatever, and they did nothing, say they did nothing to try to increase the amount of hate between two different racial groups, would that have increased the crime?
Yeah, it would have.
And did they do that?
No, it was
did
divide
they
and conquer
defund the police? So they tried to defund the police, right?
In part, yeah.
And that would
was
increase
one
the
of the
crime,
things.
right?
Increase the crime, yeah.
And so you blaming
And that
this
was
on
about
the
division
tension
of the
between races is completely irrelevant, because all of the
It's
increased
not
crime
completely irrelevant. Those people were crying false black victimhood at the hands of the white supremacist system.
Care. The point is that you claimed that because of that, that's the reason crime, like black on black crime, increased, which is false.
No, it's not. It is true.
Well, we just went over this. Like, if that could all be explained just by defund the police.
You came up with a theoretical scenario. I came up with the reality scenario, which happened twice. Hatred of cops and hatred of whites has been promoted in the black community and by the politicians and by the media. And that hatred, in addition with the single mothers, angry single mothers raising these children violently, has brought disproportionate violence out of that community. They've encouraged them to be angry. They've encouraged women to be angry and kill their kids in the womb. I think we should get rid of abortion too, because it causes a more evil, malicious, selfish, irresponsible society. I think that's probably had a hand in increasing the violent crime. It also brought about more out of wedlock births.
Decreases it.
So
provably decreases it.
No,
I kick in here. So if we could bring the topic back around to the gun control discussion, I'll just kick it back over to you, Hake, with the topic of do you think there should be any restrictions on access to just about anything, whether it's weaponry or certain vehicles or anything like that? Do you think that should be a protected right?
I might draw the line at like what Trump calls the N word, the nuclear word. I wouldn't be for private citizens having nuclear weapons, I guess. But I think that we should be free to have, full auto machine guns. I don't really get why not. I think that that's a part of that mama, overprotective helicopter parent type of a thing. Oh, save lives at the cost of freedom and common sense, and let's let the whole rest of the morality go to hell. So I think that these people are not to be trusted. So no, I wouldn't put restrictions on guns and most heavy, awesome, like weapons of war, as they call them. I don't think that we should be doing that. I could be proven wrong, but it would have to be a logical argument rather than a statistics argument, which doesn't factor in reality. Go ahead. You can do your statistics thing. I'm just saying that that's what I prefer personally. Go ahead.
Statistics and logic are the same thing. Using statistics is logical. What?
No, because you can cherry pick facts. Alternative facts bring more.
There are 0 gun deaths in Australia and Japan and Singapore. What am I cherry picking here?
Because gun deaths are not the only evil in the world.
Would removing the guns lower the gun death?
Yes.
And so if I wanted to lower the gun death, I can give examples of low guns, right? And say this is a great example, not cherry picked, to show that less guns is lower death, right?
Right. But
So I'm not
but it
cherry
is
picking
in a
anything
sense,
there.
but it is in a sense cherry pick data because I don't want to lower gun deaths. It's not like it's not a
I do.
goal of mine.
I'm trying to say I want to
Right.
lower gun deaths. So for me, the
Mhm.
accurate data I should be giving is examples of lower gun deaths.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not
you
cherry
can do that.
picking,
Yeah.
right?
When I say cherry picking, I'm talking about you're not looking at the greater evil that those countries are subject to. Australia, they didn't have they had even less rights during the virus communist shutdowns than we had. And
Unless people died too.
I don't oh, but see, mama. uh they also they're less fat than us too. I mean, there's other factors. See? There's
Yes,
like
it's true. Should ban McDonald's.
see, I'm for freedom. I think that people should, but I'm for just anyway. Yeah, go
If you
ahead.
want to go in there, Hake, and go into like a closing point here, we can get into the Q&A unless you guys want to continue a discussion if you had any other topics you wanted to touch on, or we can do some closing and get into our Q&A.
Hake is wrong. I am right. Thank you. Good night.
All right, TJump's for closing, so we'll kick it over to you there, Hake.
Okay. Some of the people in the chat, shout out to the chat, were confused a little bit by my bringing up unions and minimum wage and childcare and all that stuff. I really believe that the government is our enemy. They are the enemy of the people, just like the media are the enemy of the people. And again, our own emotions and thoughts are our enemy. I get what he's TJump is saying, but in education, for example, they're prescribing it's like a mill for prescribing drugs on kids. The misery of women and young people, depression is at, I think, an all-time high, especially among women anyway. They promote irresponsible sex. They are for making the men, I've noticed since the 80s and 90s, more effeminate, which has probably brought down violent crime. It made men less masculine, lower T, less testosterone, less violence. Oh, it's irrefutable. Or at least less effective violence, right? But I'm not for that type of things, emasculating men or boys, or turning them into girls. And when I say turning them into girls, I'm not just talking about transgender stuff. I'm talking about making them more emotional and more in touch with their emotions. Boys are broken. I'm not for that phony female-minded liberal stuff. I think we should sanction the social media establishment and every commie capitalist government entity that or corporation, by the way, who promoted anger, such as Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, which I acknowledge the Me Too didn't really have much to do with murders, but anger is evil. LGBTQ, false pride, feminism, diversity, anti-whiteness. To get rid of those things which spread anger and division, we have a very divided country it's like a house of cards. Oh, you may be safe, but we're like crumbling meanwhile. Get rid of these healthcare, quote unquote, subsidies, which drives up healthcare costs. Get rid of minimum wage, which artificially drives up cost of living and prices of things, and cost of doing business. A lot of the healthcare industry is anti-man, anti-independent thinker policies. They get rid of the best of the police, the best of the military, and the medical fields. I think we're becoming a house of cards where we're just hollowed out morally and ready to collapse. I think if we abolished, well, I already said minimum wage, deport the illegals, get rid of welfare and unemployment, put blacks and young people to work. At the fast food joints, it should be young people working rather than young people out in the streets rioting and Antifa-ing and Black Lives Mattering and occupying and all that stuff. Bring back the chain gangs and prison slavery. Let them have some self-respect again, where they're working rather than having it cushy, having TV and all that stuff, and all comfortable. Make Joe Arpaio the attorney general. Bring back some discipline and self-respect. Swift justice. Get rid of this endless appeals before the death penalty. Get rid of these politicized persecutions of these different white people and white police and Trump supporters and Trump himself, persecuted in the court system. It's very corrupt. Less emotions, less anger, less empathy, not more. Bring back real love, which is not emotional, and real prayer. They got rid of God in schools. I think that David Pakman had a point that the Christians aren't praying correctly. David Pakman mocked the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee, where the alleged transgender young lady allegedly shot up those kids and the staff. But anger causes murder and evil. It's not the so-called mental illness stuff and this false blind blame of the NRA. Bring back freedom to tell the truth and speak your mind without social punishment. Social punishment from female-minded liberal males and the so-called angry conservatives. I think that the government should not regulate the people. We need to regulate the government. Women should not be worrying their pretty little heads about this stuff. It's not good for them, and it's not good for their children, whom they are raising oftentimes.
All right, let's try to wrap up the closing there, if you don't mind.
All right.
I think
TJ I do want to say that
if that's all right.
In response, I'd say that what everything just Hake said, there's been multiple governments that have done all of those things. They're called fascist governments.
Ooh.
Right. Well, we will jump into our Q&A there.
What's that? What's your point with that?
That it's bad because all the things you listed are examples of things governments use to kill people without actually giving them a fair trial.
But none of those things are the government necessarily.
Like you said, get rid of appeals, efficient, fast judgment or whatever. That's the government killing people. Like, firing squads, gas chambers. Not the best.
I'm for the death penalty, but that's not fascism. I don't know what fascism even really means.
No, the quick part without the appeals. That part's the fascism part.
Oh, but I'm talking. You have to admit that some of these appeals are like ridiculous. Like these are obviously no question guilty mass murderers or rapists, and they're waiting decades for the death penalty. That's wrong.
Right. The decades part has nothing to do with the appeals. It has to do with the fact that the legal system is overloaded with cases. So it's not because they're appealing that they have to wait decades. It's completely unrelated.
Maybe we should get rid of some of these frivolous cases.
We should. Yes, I agree. There's lots of stupid cases.
So it's not fascism to bring back swift justice. I'm not talking about injustice.
Getting rid of appeals is definitely fascism. So
not getting rid of appeals entirely, but the endless appeals. I specifically said endless appeals.
There aren't,
which is an exaggeration, I know, but you have to admit that some of this is ridiculous. Or you don't have to, but it is. Everybody knows.
You get like one appeal. You get one appeal, and then if it goes through, and then you don't get it anymore. You can't appeal over and over again. You can't appeal the same case multiple times for the same reason.
I may be using the wrong word, but my point is the justice is not swift because we have like a female-minded liberal.
It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that the court systems are overloaded by a significant margin.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Seems like we got into some unexpected juicy conversation near the end here, which is awesome. So, what we'll do is we're going to get into our Q&A. Do either of you fellas have any time restraints this evening?
Yes, I need to sleep because I'm on a plane tomorrow to go to Texas.
Oh, yes. Very good. Awesome. We'll
Modern Day Debate.
Yep.
Conference. Right on, man.
Yep.
Yeah, and anybody who's interested, we do have our Q&A going here. Remember for our questions to be directing them at the arguments and not at our guests who are here doing this. So we're going to get right to it. Light of the Twin Lamps, $5. Does TJump retroactively support Ronald Reagan banning machine guns in California and depriving the oppressed Black community to the right to self-defense?
Maybe. I think banning machine guns is fine. I don't care who does it. I don't think it matters that Ronald Reagan did it. There are some Republicans who have passed good policies, and there are some Democrats who have passed good policies. Both have had bad policies. I don't know the specific example he's using, so I can't really comment on the historicity of it, but I'd be for banning machine guns, sure.
I know that there was I don't know about the machine guns part, but in California, specifically Los Angeles, there was a black mother who carried a gun in her car illegally because of the crazy crime that was going on in the 80s, 90s, because she had a baby in her car with her and didn't want to get carjacked. She ran around armed illegally because the government is against the innocent people protecting themselves from the evil.
All right, we'll let you close that out there, TJump, where it was for you.
Well, they're against anybody having guns, and so they're against both you personally carrying guns and the criminals carrying guns.
But they are the criminals sometimes. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Right, so we're going to move on here. I'm just going to remind everybody that if you can put as much as $1 into our crowdfund, you can actually watch the full live stream of DebateCon, which, as you heard, TJump is going to be out on the plane tomorrow to head towards for his debate with Aaron Raw here, which is going to be epic.
That crowdfund is the igg.me/@/DebateCon31.
Yes, that would be the one there in the description there. So, and also, once again, all of our guests are linked in the description as well. So if you want to keep an eye on either of our guests, give them a follow through there. So Bubblegum Gun for $2 says, those who oppose the second are just government bootlickers.
Clearly not, because I'm pretty anti-government.
Then I would call you naive.
How?
Well, because they're doing all kinds of evil, and then you're taking away the rights of the people to protect themselves from the evil.
Do guns stop polluting of Flint, Michigan?
No, I don't think so.
Did
Polluting of Flint, Michigan water? No.
Did guns stop government from executing people who are innocent?
I can't think of any cases where that has happened. Correct.
Did guns get the government to put any of the CEOs in prison for causing the financial collapse?
No, they did not put them in prison.
Do you think guns do anything to stop the government from doing all the corrupt shit the government does?
I think they kind of get in the way. Like, it makes the people think twice. It's kind of like mass numbers. Down in Compton, California, there was, which is right here in LA, there was mass numbers of people looting an Arco station. Cops didn't step in because of the too many numbers. And again, if there's like up in the Malheur Ranch, which I'm not necessarily for that militia occupying up in Malheur Ranch, but the police did not come in because they knew that they were armed. It slows the government down against the people. It makes them think twice going against the people. I'm for doing it in an orderly, right way. I'm not for necessarily what the Bundy ranchers did or didn't do. I don't know specifics of that.
Well, so did the bankers have guns when they caused the financial crisis? Did the bankers have guns when they took hundreds of billions from the government? No, they didn't need guns. Guns aren't what stops the government. Government does lots of stuff.
It down.
Even though you have guns.
I just proved that it slows it down. You're just bringing up irrelevant points.
It slows the police from going into a building, but they still take all of your homes and your assets and cause inflation. And
I know,
like it doesn't slow them down.
Yeah, I know. That's there. There is much other. There are many other like spiritual strengths and mental strengths and other strengths that we need to be exercising to protect ourselves from the government. You are absolutely correct on that. I grant you that. If we were wiser, we would not elect such corrupt people who steamroll over our rights. Guns are not the only solution. Yeah, these people who are saying, "Oh, at least I got my Second Amendment. Come and take them." No, I do roll my eyes at that as well. But it's not a reason to just give them up, just because it's not useful for every little thing, every little violation from the government.
For like all of them, any of the violations of the government. It doesn't really do anything to stop any of the violations of the government. All the things, the violations that the government do, none of them are stopped by guns.
Then why did the fascist Hitler disarm the Jews? Didn't he disarm the Jews, and then they had free range to go in and take them away? I think it might have been a little bit more hairy of a situation had he not been allowed to disarm the Jews. Are you anti-Semitic or something?
No, I'm pro-Jew. I wish I was a Jew. I think
Me
Jews
too.
have the highest IQ, but that had to do with government in America, like screwing over
Disarming the people and then rounding up the Christians and the whites and the men and the children, babies, and aborting them all.
I think that's how it works, Hake.
All right, well, we'll continue on. So, the unwanted man. $5. Can TJump guarantee that all the gun deaths that are prevented by a full gun ban won't just be carried out with other weapons? So we kind of talked about that a little bit with the knife thing there.
Yes, because it's the harder it is to kill someone, the less often people die. So if you had to kill someone with a rusty spoon, it would literally just take longer to do it than if you had a gun. And so even if you had the intention of killing exactly the same number of people, it would be physically impossible to do so because it would take you longer with a rusty spoon or knife than it would with a gun. So yes, we can guarantee that there is never going to be the case that if you ban guns, the amount of deaths of other weapons would be equivalent to the amount of deaths by guns.
And the criminals
and we have the data to prove that. We have the data to prove that, yes.
And the criminals will always get the guns. We're going to always have these terror attacks, especially with this diverse society that we're diverse and hate-filled society that is encouraged by the government. So you're just leaving the good people sitting ducks.
No.
Chicago, Baltimore, and all these other cities, many cities have very strict so-called gun laws.
Stupid
and
laws.
all kinds of violent crime and evil going on in those societies.
No, if we decrease the overall number of guns sequentially over a long period of time, the amount of guns that criminals will have will also decrease proportionally. Will it decrease at the same rate? No. Will it decrease? Yes. So like with the examples of the police in the UK who don't have guns, most of the criminals in the UK also don't have guns. Do some of them? Sure, some of them do. But the percentage of people who have guns in the total is lower, which then leads to the percentage of criminals having guns also being lower.
I don't even care.
You don't care that less criminals have less guns.
Right, because I want the people to have the guns. Because we will have less criminals if we had a more honest government. and a more honest people, really. Because I'm for the people being honest and real and moral, not for relying on the government to do this. It's the government's evil. They've proven that they're evil.
All right. Yeah, that one was for TJump, so we'll let you close that one out there.
That's fine.
All right, cool.
Have you ever fired a gun, TJump?
Yes.
All right, we'll continue.
I don't want to ask if you own one because that's a personal question.
Yeah, we'll try to keep trucking through so we can get TJump to bed here. So Coffee Mom for $1.99. I think we've already answered this a few times. Is asking, is Hake a pro-choice advocate now?
Oh, you mean for killing the babies in the womb? No, definitely not. I'm for getting rid of abortions. That's causing a more evil and angry and violent society. And it's actually increasing the number. It has increased the number of out of wedlock births because the sex out of wedlock increased because you have this extra option that you never thought of before. So it's a real mess. It's evil.
All right, and we'll continue on. Light of the Twin Lamps, $5. Hypothetically speaking, let's say a particular group commits most pew-pew weapon violence. TJump, should we restrict immigration from Africa?
No, what does immigration have to do with guns? They don't bring their guns with them. The problem is the guns.
I know, but he's making the point that, and I don't think that it's necessarily African immigrants. Some of the immigrants and their children are a problem, but there's a lot of Black Americans who are just poorly raised and filled with fed anger by the government, the media, the churches, the mothers, and even some fathers. And so, of course, it's going to be out of control. And I'm for reforming. I'm for black reform. I'm for people reform, not for this so-called gun reform.
All right. And we have Kurt Henneman for $5. Hank, if you heard God, Hake, if you heard God tell you to kill the heathens, would you obey the order?
I don't think so. I mean, God wouldn't tell me to do that. It's not the Old Testament, man. That's ridiculous. He's trying to get me in trouble.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, TJump's
So
trying to
if
get us.
you lived in the Old Testament and God told you to do it, would you do it?
I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Oh, my.
I might be the heathen gets killed. God knows. God knows these hypotheticals.
Somebody's trying to get you in trouble, and TJump's trying to get us tetanus shots, and let's see here.
Really?
All right, so we got, this is quite the name. We got Harry Penis, praise God. Harry Penis, praise God. I can't do my televangelist voice today. Ban dogs, they kill. Swimming pools, table salt, skydiving, fast food, bungee jumping. We understand there are risks, but we still like the freedom. I think that's towards you, TJump.
Yes. So
Boom.
if we could prevent those from killing people as well, we should. Yes.
All right. Caught in the middle, $5. The thing being missed is that there are so many guns owned that the government doesn't push the major infractions they might otherwise. Thanks for your super chat, Caught in the Middle. Nice to see you again.
I don't understand. They don't push the major infractions. I don't get it.
I think I don't know it necessarily, but Caught in the Middle is a I'm familiar with him. He may be talking about I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I would say, what he reminded me of, is that broken windows policing would do a lot, and it did before a lot, 3 strikes laws and things like that, to reduce the violent crime. It's not the solution, because the solution, that's only addressing the symptom again, but it's we have a soft on crime government across the country in local cities and stuff, where
Literally the opposite of how the rest of the world sees it.
Well,
I
will
know
say,
the rest of the world is stupid.
Caught in the Middle did.
Sorry, rest of the world. We love you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Caught in the Middle did have a follow-up for $2,
Nice.
and thanks again. Maybe this could add some context, saying 78% of I think he means gang crimes, are illegal owners.
Yes. And they get those from legal owners usually. So like most of the illegal owners either buy or steal guns from legal owners. And so if you have less legal owners, there's less guns that would go to the illegal owners.
So they shouldn't be cracking down on the ability, the free ability of the legal owners to be grabbing their guns. We should nip in the bud the criminals before they even get to the point where they're even thinking of committing a murder.
Well, that causes more crime, Hake. So that policy is what causes
more crime?
being hard on crime. If you get hard on crime, that's
Uh-huh.
more fathers in prison and less fathers in the home, more fatherless homes, more crime.
No, man, I don't care about that. That's not quite accurate. That's babying the criminals by saying that type of thing.
Well, it's true. Like you agree, fatherless homes causes people to be raised without fathers, and they have
Right,
less.
But that's not what's driving the fatherless homes. What's driving the
That's
fatherless
literally
homes
what's Hake. That's literally what's driving it. That's one of the
No, it's not.
reasons. Yeah, it is.
it may be a tiny 1% factor.
It's like one of the majority factors.
No, I don't buy that. I think that it's
Google it, Hake. Why
it
is
may
there
be.
so many fatherless homes? Google it, Hake.
If it's one of the factors, I don't care, because
You don't care.
right, because it's more when the fathers and mothers don't get along, and actually that's partly because they're having sex out of wedlock. It's not as if they're married. Those aren't married couples it's not married fathers who are going to jail by and large. I would hazard a guess. Have you looked into that stat?
I
Or
have
is that
no,
just a
no, I've never had the interest of looking into that stuff.
boom? Marriage, morals.
Marriage has nothing to do with morals. More Protestant Christians are in prison, and more Protestant Christians get divorces, and more Protestant Christians cheat on their wives than do like secular people who aren't married.
It's irrelevant because Christianity is
You said marriage is
Christians.
moral. Marriage is
No,
literally
I'm making the point that Christians are a mess ourselves.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, very
but
true.
but you can't say that it has marriage has well anyway.
Marriage does have nothing to do with it. Marriage is not relevant to it. I don't know
No,
why you brought up marriage.
no, it is relevant. Uh, married parents are a good factor in the predictor, if you want to look at the statistics of the well-being of the kid.
Oh, sure, that part I agree with for sure.
Thank you.
Let's move on to
All
our
right.
last super chat.
Okay.
And I will say, sorry, I got caught in the middle that I misunderstood what you meant there. So yeah, G for gun crimes. So gun crimes also major infraction equals complete rights removal, as in minor infractions to the Constitution, piece by piece, not complete deletion. And this is our last super chat for the night.
I did not understand that.
Read it over again. I'll listen closely.
So
Who's it caught in the middle again?
yeah, so if we just give me 1 second here, I think I can get this all contextualized where he's given a few super chats here. So 78% of gun crimes are illegal owners. The thing being missed here is that there are so many guns owned that the government doesn't push the major infractions that they might otherwise. So I think what he's saying here is that that the things that they're trying to hammer down on are this is a little bit, I am a little confused here myself.
And then read the last.
Yeah, so
one.
gun crimes, it was his clarification. When he says
in terms of major infractions.
so major infractions, complete rights removal. So owned that the government doesn't push for a complete rights removal that they might otherwise.
Of everyone?
I think that's what he's implying there. I think we've tried to piece it together there a little too much. Now we've gotten a real mess. It's
Well, like the reason we don't do a full rights removal is because of the Republicans. Like if we didn't have the Republicans, we probably would have by now.
A rights removal of the Second Amendment, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're quite right, I'm sure. There are some Democrats and liberals and even socialists and communists who are for the gun rights, but many are not. I'm not even really for felons who've served their full sentence not being allowed to carry guns. Sometimes those are the ones who need to be armed because they still have enemies, you know? So it's a mess.
all right. Well,
We have an under-incarceration problem, though. That's for sure.
We have more people incarcerated than like the other top 8 countries combined.
some of them
what are you
should be-
talking about?
Some of them should be death penaltied, I suppose.
Oh my god.
Some of
Oh
them
my
some of them
God.
don't belong in prison. Some of them are innocent. I'm quite sure of that. I mean, Derek Chauvin, I don't think that he's guilty of murder. Give me a break. But we have it's a terrible mess. But this take away the gun solution, it's no real solution.
all right.
Said none of the countries who actually took the guns away and have less crime.
I don't care about those countries. They're evil.
All right, I need a 10-second response to the super chat, and then we're gonna close out, so we can get TJump to bed here, so that he's nice and rested up for these juicy debates coming up here. And thanks for doing that, TJump. So, Hake, when will you debate theologian Benthorpe?
One can never predict the future, but I'm not into the idea. If Modern Day Debate wants to host something, I guess I wouldn't turn it down, because I like to take opportunities from Modern Day Debate. But I'm not in. The guy's full of ego, so drop it, buddy.
All right, well, there we go. That's coming in on a strong note there. So we're going to close on out once again. Remember to hit the like and subscribes there. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. TJump. Hake, everybody's going to be pinned in our in the bottom here in our details section, along with our link to our crowdfund for DebateCon. So definitely check that out and join us live for the 22nd. And if you can be there in person in Fort Worth, Texas, yeah, that's awesome too. So yeah, cheers everybody, and have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Ugh.